And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. It's Friday, June 27th, third hour Friday. It's time for What Just Happened. And today we only have two returning champions because they're that good. You know, in fact, I could just have either one of these on. In fact, I might drop one halfway through if they're not holding up their end of the bargain. First, Maureen Langan is back, Bloomberg journalist turned comedian, who's back in America after a 5-week tour performing in Europe, which we have to hear about. Maureen, nice to see you, my friend. She's done radio, host everything in the world. It's good to see you. Welcome back to America.
Well, thank you, I think.
Well, I lost that bet. I didn't think you'd get back in. Still.
Well, I have an Irish passport, or as I call an exit strategy, so I'm safe.
And look who's also back, Pete Dominick. Stand Up with Pete Dominick, the podcast that you must subscribe to. You can also check it out on YouTube and everywhere they have podcasts. And he's a stand-up comic, speaker, news commentator, host, you name it. My friend, Pete Dominick. Hello, friend.
I'm so glad to be here with two of my oldest friends in our careers, really. I mean, Dean and Maureen, it's an honor to be with you, and I can't wait to hear about Maureen, what she heard in Europe about us.
All right, let's start there, Maureen, because we're all intrigued by this. Where did you go in Europe? Before we talk about the topics, where did you go?
Well, I was there for 5 weeks, so I spent 2 weeks in Ireland, a week in Holland, and some time in Belgium, and 2 weeks in the UK, which is not technically Europe, but I lumped it together.
Sure, and you did comedy shows.
I did a tour. Yeah, I did a tour called America Funnier from a Distance tour. And because here, you know, people go bananas if you make jokes. You know how the whole thing is. And I just wanted a place where I wanted to feel what it was like to be out of here and what it felt like to perform in places that weren't in America. And I have to tell you, they think we're nuts. Overall, I met 2 people who were pro-Trump because people that would come up to me and say, I like Trump. Most people
in Europe.
Yes. One woman was from Russia living in Belgium, and she said she feels that we're only getting one-sided news. And then there was an African guy born and raised, his parents were African, in Ireland. And he's like, hey, I think there's an interesting man. I'm on board with him right now. Let's see. I mean, I don't know how bad it can be. I go, oh God, I have to talk to you. So, but what was interesting is people weren't anti-American toward me.
Yeah. Okay.
No, toward me. They were relieved because I'd open my show with going, I love my country. And they'd be like, okay. I go, I just hate 50% of the people in it. That's all, but I love my country. So then, you know, I go, it's so nice to be here where people are reading the books instead of banning them. So they got to see my point of view and they came on. But they do think we're insane. They do go, what are you doing? We look to you as a shining star, as a beacon. And this is insanity that you have chosen this man again. They're frightened for how the impact, the flow will affect them. The tariffs, but they look to us as a beacon of independence. And they, as am I, horrified by plucking people off streets, horrified by what's going on in our country. They won't travel here. My cousins were going to come to travel. No, we have family weddings because they've detained Irish people. They've detained all people. So anyway, it was interesting to see.
I'm glad you shared that. Let's ask Pete, have you left the tri-state area in the last?
I haven't left this room in years, but I will say this. My daughters flew with their mother to Sicily yesterday. And the last thing I asked them, I was like, now, remember, when people ask you where you're from, what do you say? They're like, what do you mean? I said, what do you tell people when you say where you're from? Like, New York? Like, no, Toronto. You're Canadian.
Canada,
Remember, you're Canadian now. As long as you're outside this country, you're not from this country. Get yourself a maple leaf flag.
How have you talked to them in Sicily? Because that's my plan B, is where my grandparents are from.
Oh, you're going back to being Italian. Look at you.
You know my whole act. That's what I joked about. I'm now Dean Obeidallah from Jersey. How you doing? I'm no longer Dean Obeidallah. And I have all new names for my Arab cousins, like Tarek is Tony and Musa is Big Moose, stuff like that. You know, it's comedy near the end of times. That's what I really view it as when I do comedy. So does the audience. They view it near the end of times as well. So Pete, let's talk about what's going on in the world. You guys mentioned the Supreme Court decision. The one quick thing, just so everybody knows, and I've covered on my show already earlier, is that the decision of the Supreme Court that doesn't allow universal injunctions is such a threat to our rights, but it's also part of the goal of dividing America into different nation states of states. This is the Republican goal. And the Supreme Court did that because in their decision, you can't have nationwide injunctions by a federal judge, but they're still open to They're going to let it be decided. Each state, you can have an injunction, you have standing, which means only blue state AGs are going to go to court to stop things. And red state AGs are like, oh, you can ban birthright citizenship here. That's fine. We're going to just fracture further and further. That's what, and I think they want that. I mean, Roe v. Wade, overturn it, let states take fundamental rights away. So women have more rights in blue states than red states. So Maureen, I mean, forget the legalese. This is just about a political approach to America. That's what they're doing. There's no law.
But what I want you to explain, I know you read the 116 page,
Reading most of it.
you read most of it, but what I understood is that they're saying judges can't nationally, federally freeze stuff. They can't stop. That's what they're saying, right? It's up to the state. Yeah.
That's the end.
He's got what he wants. It's interesting because when Kennedy was running for president, people were frightened that we would have a Catholic country, and they didn't want that. But we do have this Christian country, and he has put in place the people he wants, and they're doing what he wants, and they're giving him the king's power. And that is frightening because we're supposed to be United States, and there is supposed to be federal laws. So it is burdensome.
It's very scary. And Pete, the bigger picture, thanks to this GOP Supreme Court, they've now ruled a president can literally commit crimes in the White House. As long as they're in official action, they're immune. And now a president can sit behind a desk and rewrite the Constitution literally. And that if you want to protect your rights, individuals across the nation have to go to court. And if you don't have the wherewithal to go to court, you can't protect your rights. And it might one day get up to the Supreme Court. That might rule against Trump, but the Supreme Court 6-3 on his team. And I don't know where this is heading, but it's really it's chipping away our freedoms and our rights.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Thank you. There you go.
It's so frightening. It's so scary. It's depressing. Every June, it seems the last several years, we've been waiting for this Christian National Supreme Court to take more of our rights. I mean, one thing that you can say that's not a partisan comment is something that this court has done is consolidate power and give away power, its own power. So, two branches of government have a lot less power as a result of these decisions. So the legislative branch and judicial branch have much less power, and it's turning more into, a kingdom, a fiefdom for this king, to be clear. But it's not just that decision. And Adam Serwer posted, and I thought this was eloquent. This is an assault on the Reconstruction Amendments by a neo-Confederate court wedded to the far-right argument that those amendments were illegitimate and destroyed the original intent of the founders, which was to create a white man's country. I thought that was pretty good, pretty well said. But they also came down with a couple of other decisions, one of which would, allow you to opt your kid out of the public school teachings that might include something about a gay kid. So it's like, you know what, Mikey, you're staying home today. They're talking gay crap. And there's another decision as well.
Wait, hang on for a second. But how many kids, you know how kids are. I didn't want to go to school, right? So you tell your parents, all the next 2 weeks, all gay stuff. Like, even if it's not, so I don't have to go to school. And the conservative parents are like, you stay home.
Well, that's the funny joke, and I made it first. But more importantly, the school.
What? Where did you make that first?
But the serious point is, these decisions, they so often don't take into consideration the Supreme Court, what this means for an industry. For example, what this means when you make a decision, what does this mean for the healthcare industry? What does this mean for the banking industry? What does this mean in this case for public schools? They're all now going to have to notify. It's creating more bureaucracy, more paperwork for teachers and administrators to tell families we're teaching gay shit today.
But can I tell you, I'm going to be honest, this is something I don't disagree with because I am so tired of the banning of books. Fundamentally, I think it's outrageous. I have 3 siblings who work in the school system, a history teacher, English teacher, and a school social worker. But I remember in 5th grade, when we're learning about menstruation, there was a gal who did not stay in class, Lori Kruller. Her mother took her out because we called her Crotch because we were talking about crotches, so she wasn't allowed. That became her nickname, the poor thing.
Nice.
But it's terrible. But her mother didn't want her nice. Her mother didn't want crotch in there, learning about crotches. So the thing is, I don't want you doing blanket banning. If you, as a parent, don't want your children reading those books, good. Take them out and let the rest of the class learn and read.
I see your point. And that is, in a way, an interesting combination because it's not like the school is going to lose funding. You're not taking the kid completely out of the school. You're taking him out for a day or two.
Well, just to be clear, I agree too with everything Maureen's saying, but I minimize the decision. Like, it's a lot worse than what I just said. That's one part of this.
I haven't read. See, that one I haven't read.
It really would. It's an attack, as the right has been, on public schools to try to make them more religious or privatize them. So it's bad for public schools.
I agree. I see your point with
It's
that.
interesting.
I just,
Don't agree with him, please, ever. You have to fight him at every tooth and nail, every way. Look, how it's going to be. Think about that as a practical matter. Like if you're a kid in school and you're like, I want to come to class, my parents won't let me because they're teaching about something about gays to dads to moms, whatever. Like what tension that's going to cause the students too, because it's the kids that suffer this. It's not the fact there's not kids who are 12 going, I don't want to learn about this gay stuff. They have no idea. I would like you children want to learn, and they're going to like, I want to learn about different lives and what their experience is like. That's where you're in school. So I wonder ultimately, and I also wonder on some level if it makes some parents go, okay, we were going to pull our kid and put them in a parochial school with a voucher, but now they're going to let me take my kid out. Maybe I'm going to keep the kid there, and maybe it keeps more funding the public schools.
The bigger case, though, is the birthright citizenship case, which we haven't even discussed, really.
yeah,
that's the injunction case. But that's the injunction case because they didn't rule on the merits of birthright citizenship. They expressly did not. It was not even litigated. But it's going to go in effect in 30 days from now. That's the worst part of it.
What does it mean for birthright citizenship in red states then?
Going forward from now in 30 days, unless you go to court and get a judgment that rules that it doesn't apply to you or your family, it's going to apply, meaning that it's so impossible to actually administer this. That's why you need a nationwide injunction. It's going to create a class of people who are stateless, who are born here and not citizens of any other state. They're not citizens of the United States of America either, unless they get it from their parents somewhere else. So look, it's beyond problematic. It's more divided. It's more, to be honest, in the big picture, I think the goal of Trump and MAGA is to end the United States as a republic. And we're just going to break into little states. I mean,
what I'm confused about is you're telling us that birthright citizenship, while they didn't specifically
on the merits, they did not
merit in that, but one state can say, so how is this injunction affect that then?
No, there's no. See, right now there was an injunction that was nationwide by district court judges saying you can't. This birthright citizen stuff is unconstitutional and it can't be enforced anywhere. Right. So that's what it was. Supreme Court goes, we're not even going to consider the merits of this case. We're only going to consider this procedural issue of can you do a nationwide injunction? And the Supreme Court said, nope, you can't do it. Only the litigants of the case get the benefits of it. And maybe, not definitely, maybe the states can bring an action and have standing. They didn't decide that. They didn't decide the actual constitutionality of birthright citizenship. That goes back to the court and it starts all over down there. So there, now the district court judge is going to say it's unconstitutional. Then it goes to the Court of Appeals and then comes back to the Supreme Court. And someday, maybe next year at this time, they rule on that. In between that, it's going to cause great distress and chaos.
Oh, yeah.
Because
that's the other thing.
You're a litigant to a case. It's going to be the law of the land. And forget the law of the land part. Trump sits in the White House, signs something saying the 14th Amendment doesn't apply the way it's always been applied. And that's going to be the law of the land. If the Supreme Court hears it next year, is outrageous because he could do that for First Amendment. He can say literally, if you criticize me, you're losing your broadcast license and we're going to shut you down and arrest you. And you go, that's unconstitutional. Yeah, guess what? If I go to court, I'll win. But if Pete doesn't get to go to court, he doesn't get the benefit of that ruling. Pete's got to go to court on his own. So as they talk about in the dissent, now people with wherewithal can go to court, protect their rights. And those who don't, or don't join a class action, guess what? You're screwed. This is not the way the system's supposed to work.
Well, that's for sure. How about this? I'm just seeing this too. One of these decisions today, 6-3. A part of it is going to apparently require certain states to require porn sites to force people to enter data to prove that they're over 18. So, if the Supreme Court might have accidentally saved America because they're going to be very mad that screwing over people's porn. And that you're gonna have to put your ID in a red state.
Well, look, Pete, this is effed up, and I'm really concerned for the country over this. And again, it's I think Maureen, you mentioned it, but there's this unitary executive theory that on the right has been out there for a long time. It was fringe, now it's mainstream. In essence, the president's king, and people are going, well, but aren't they worried that a Democratic president is going to do the same thing? I have to warn you. I think they're planning that there won't be a Democratic president that will be able to take power while the Supreme Court is there. That's my other concern. But that's for another day. Because
but just an aside, the porn case the opinion was written by Clarence Thomas, which I think is hilarious.
Did he?
The opinion,
Oh,
I believe he wrote there, the majority opinion.
I'd love to see his internet history.
His-
But so you don't think there's going to be a President Zoran Mamdani?
he's
You know,
not born in America, but then they might even get rid. I don't know what to say. So let's talk about Zoran. I'm trying to
he might not
remind
even
him.
be here anymore. I mean, this
He
birthright
might get
citizenship,
deported.
he may not even be.
sorry, Zoran, you're gone. You're gone.
I don't like his beard. I don't like him at all.
Like him, he looks a lot like
Meanwhile, let's talk about the upside to it, because the campaign was completely laser focused on one thing, affordability. And Zoran said over and over, we're going to fight for working people with no apology. That was what the campaign, I live in New York. That's what he was running. Free buses, free childcare, freezing your rent, raising taxes on the wealthy. That was it. That was it. The people on the right will go on to define him any way they want. That's what won the election. That was it for him. And the question is there a lesson for Democrats not to run the exact same campaign, but to run one focus on working class people and saying, this is what we're about. This is our party. And we're going to make your life and your family's life better. And the other issues, we're always going to have compassion and empathy and talk about them and protect people. But this is our laser focus. And so anyone asks them a question about something else, they go, I'm here to talk about lower prices for our average, for working class Americans. I don't know if that works or not, but Maureen, what do you think? Is there, before we talk about the ugliness, do you think there's something there?
Yes, and we'll talk about the ugliness later, but yeah, there is some movement here. I was very surprised that he came in tops. I really was.
Me too.
Uh,
Yeah.
I voted for Lander, but I think that there is this movement, particularly amongst the young people, but it wasn't just young people. People want some kind of leadership. These democratic values. My father was a garbage man from the South Bronx, working class, union guy, and he voted for Trump before he died. But the thing being is that that's probably what killed him. But the thing being, there is a movement here. New York, this is the whole thing. When I was telling you I was 5 weeks overseas, I love that I live in New York City because you got your cab driver, your person down the hall, your person down the street, around the corner. Everybody's from somewhere else and everybody has a story. And it is about the working class in New York. How's he going to pull this off? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he's going to actually make buses free. The MTA is going to go for that. They like to jack up prices every year. They like to make nice pensions and have a lot of money around them. So I don't know, but the child care stuff he wants to do is very interesting. Rent stabilization, having a board look at that. As a person who owns an apartment, sometimes your taxes go up and your maintenance goes up, so your rent has to go up. But I'm curious to see what his ideas, and they're bold. I don't know who our leadership is in the Democratic Party anymore nationwide. I don't see him as being I think there'll be lessons learned from him that people can pluck, but they are going to tarnish it with his Muslim hood.
Oh yeah.
And
So
they're
buses are free. Subway
Muslim?
$25. The bus free. Subway $25. Pete, that's the trade-off.
well, yeah, you gotta ride the bus facing Mecca.
And it stops for prayers 5 times a day. You're an idiot. This is
That's hilarious.
that's funny. I like that, Pete. This is
I think
Stops for
this is-
prayers. Oh,
I think it's fascinating. I think that this guy is really very interesting. I'm pretty excited about it. I think that when you led into this, you talked about the strategy that we should really only be potentially Democrats should just be focused on cost of living type of issues, laser focused on those types of issues. I think whenever I hear somebody say that, I think it's like what you're saying is you don't want to talk about race and gender and sexual orientation. Got it. But just say it. Like, let's not get distracted with trans. Let's not get distracted with immigration. Let's not get distracted with voting rights or all kinds of other issues that women obviously are concerned with. That's what it sounds like to me. And I don't know what's right, but I just want to call out. That's what I hear. I hear, let's not get distracted with quote, social issues, identity issues. And when I hear that, my only calculus about that is fine. That would be nice. But then you're going to lose a whole bunch of people that are only on board with you because of those issues. And they think you're advocating for them to be able to marry the person they love or vote or get an abortion or any other number of those issues. So
I could see how a simplistic person like yourself would think that, but
No.
more complex. We could do both. It's not a problem on any level because Democrats have not run a working class focused campaign, which of course embraces people of all different backgrounds, races, sexual orientations, everything. And at the same time, be fighting with empathy and compassion like we have as Democrats for every community that's being marginalized and attacked. It's not one or the other by any stretch of the imagination. So I agree. Some people might see it like that because they're dumb, but the reality is, no, I'm not kidding. The reality is that you can do both, but it's what is overarching. Like, what are you known for? And if it's about bringing down, making sure people can feed their family and
If it's
have
99,
childcare, and they'd be like,
99%, the anti-oligarchy idea, that, I mean, that's what you're talking about. Eat the rich. Is that a winning message? It is to me. I mean, the vast majority of us are not these wealthy people who are funding campaigns and advocating for themselves. I mean, what's your joke? Go ahead, make your joke.
no, I'm not going to talk about how untasty Mike Bloomberg would be to eat, but I would eat his leg. I would start with the leg.
I worked for him for a lot of years, and I think
Oh, that's right. I'm talking about Maureen Langan, who's Mark Bloomberg.
Langan.
Used to work with Langan, Bloomberg, whatever. I'm just messing.
Langan.
So
Known
let's
you
talk
20
about,
years.
hey, all right,
wait.
Maureen. Sorry, did you want to say something else,
I
Maureen?
wanted to talk. One of the things that I liked, Mom Donnie was talking about was city-owned, run supermarkets. That's an interesting
Oh,
concept
yeah,
to me.
one brand of mustard. I hope you like Cuba.
Well, listen, I like Trader Joe's, and it works for me. All right.
Yep, exactly. That mention Trader Joe's. It's all going to be halal food. First of all, it's going to be
Oh
great.
God, I hate that. No,
It's not going to be
so-
halal. It tastes all the same.
I love the idea. I'd love to hear more about it when we interrupted you with our jokes, but I don't know what that supermarket looks like. Trader Moe's.
Trader Moe's, baby. But
Oh.
you go to Gristedes, not joking, the little Talente ice cream that I love, $14.99. It's
What?
$7.99 elsewhere. No joke, 14. I took a picture of it. I was so enraged. There's so much greed out there. And I only go to Gristedes if I'm stuck and there's nothing else around. And you go in, you're like, oh, come on. It's like obnoxious. It's so disgusting.
I hang on for a second. I have to do a quick commercial. This segment brought to you by Gristedes. When you want to overpay for ice cream,
Gristedes, when you want to take an escalator to your groceries.
That's Whole Foods as well. No, it's so yeah, that the store thing, that was not a central part of the campaign. I've read about it. I don't even understand. I've had him on my show. I didn't even bring it up because that was not the big things was housing. We have a housing crisis. It's really expensive. He wants to, and part, it's funny. There was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal today, because yes, I read the Wall Street Journal, how there are big developers who don't like what he's saying, and other developers love what he's saying because he said he's going to make the land use applications go quicker, get rid of parking requirements, so you can have building more apartments that go up in the air and not require parking. So there can be more affordable housing. So there's some developers today that are, this is what we do. This is great. And other high-end developers like, I don't think we like this.
What apartments have parking in Manhattan?
It's a
Where
weird
is
thing. I think
parking?
the outer
There's no
boroughs
parking.
more. I think they have.
Where is this parking?
If you're building an apartment building, you might have to have some kind of parking, but it's not. I know. I mean, I used to do land use in Jersey. That was a real issue.
One more quick thing about this
Please do.
is just already you're hearing the panic on the right and elsewhere saying that wealthy people that are the underpinning of the tax base in Manhattan, New York City, are going to leave. They're going to move. And it's just like, I'm so tired of this idea that if you raise taxes a very little bit, unnoticeable to them, that they're going to leave. They start saying it and people start talking about it. They're not going anywhere. They're not going. It's New York City. No one's leaving because no millionaires are leaving because their taxes are going up a little bit. I mean, they're not even making money on their work. They're making money on their investments. It makes no difference to them. It's a preposterous notion, and the fear tactics around rich people leaving. Let them go, by the way. We'll leave money.
You got to bring rent prices down, home prices.
Didn't he also say, Dean, that he wants to see about letting the city tax go, because we pay a state and a city tax, and then also raise corporate taxes to match that of New Jersey. So I'm just curious. I don't know if he said anything about the city tax.
I didn't hear anything about that.
Maybe Lander did.
The corporate tax.
Somebody.
I like Brad Lander a lot. I had Brad on my show. You know, I ranked Zoran first and Brad second. I thought they ran almost as a team. They really, between them, they got 55% of the vote, and they are pretty close in terms of progressive policies to help the average person. While Cuomo ran on, I don't even know what. It was status quo all the way.
He barely ran. He wouldn't even get out of his car.
His car ran. He let his car run.
Yeah.
You get 36% of the vote. So, all right. And on the ugliness, before we go to a break, I mean, you've got Representative Andy Ogles, a Republican scumbag, calling Zoran Little Muhammad, because I guess that's our nickname now, which I'm known as Big Muhammad, so I don't care. It's okay. And then you've got Nancy Mace posted a picture of Zoran, said, after 9/11, we said, never forget. I think we sadly have forgotten. And like, you're not even hiding it. Like, this is, I'm not surprised, but there's such a swell of it. I fear that it manifests in hate crimes, what often happens, unless this is sort of like quiets down because there's other things to focus on. But that's ugly. And there's some Democrats not spewing, just labeling him as anti-Semitic without giving any examples. I'm like,
Well,
what?
okay. So Dean, here, first of all, I think it's abhorrent that what Nancy Mace is saying and what some of these people are saying. It's just disgusting, absolutely disgusting. And I recoiled when I read that. However, I also believe that saying from the river to the sea and calling for global intifada has meaning to Jews, has really strong meaning and frightening meaning to Jewish people. And he is not negating that he said that. He's just saying it has different
Well, he
meanings
didn't
for
say
him.
he
Well,
won't announce it.
as the only Jew here,
He didn't say globalizing the thought. He was asked, "Does that
there are
make you
no Jews
uncomfortable?"
here. I'm not
Right.
Jewish.
And he
He
said,
wouldn't I know you're
right,
not.
he wouldn't denounce it.
He
Like, he
wouldn't
didn't say
disavow it. Right. And
He
that
wanted-
bothered me. The river to the sea comments, that bothers me. So I have some issues with things that I feel are not supportive of Jews and Israel, in addition to being supportive of Palestinians and what have you.
I think
Go ahead.
that I don't know much about this guy. And when those two comments were the comments that I've heard that he's been criticized over in his, feelings for Israel and so on. But what I saw in the 3 minutes on Colbert that he did was all I needed as someone who's been working with anyone from the ADL to a number of other organizations for my whole career to fight anti-Semitism. And what he did was he acknowledged the huge spikes in anti-Semitism in America and around the world statistically. Then he said anecdotally 2 stories of recent attacks, and
Right.
then he just is Muslim himself, and so knows walking around that he could be targeted just because he looks that way and he's at an airport gate. I thought he handled it so well. Anti-Semitism and pro-Israeli, a lot of people can't separate them. I think they should be separated. That's my opinion. And I thought his answer on that was very should be satisfying. But again, I'm the only non-Jew.
He's again, you're not Jew. There is a distinction in my view. Anti-Jewishness is the way it should be talked about, because somehow anti-Semitism includes the state of Israel, and that's a whole different discussion. As long in his line, nothing's ever suggested that he said anything that was anti-Jewish. Does it make certain people uncomfortable that he won't announce those things? Yes. And for those people that are who are truly Democrats, then he's gonna have to talk to them. But he wants to create a whole community unit in the city that's going to deal with hate crimes,
offered a solution,
anti-Semitism,
policy.
and everything else. So he's addressing it. And I think Siri's talking. Siri's just sending stuff on her own. I think the good thing is that he is not.
Siri just called you an anti-Semite.
Siri just called me different things. I like the fact that he said, look, you might not agree with me on the Middle East, but I'm going to fight against anti-Semitism in New York, and that there's no place for it. And I think that's important because
I'm going to wipe out Israel, but don't worry, we're going to have affordable buses in New York. He didn't say he's going to wipe out Israel, but I would like if he more forcefully said, I denounce from the river to the sea, its meaning to the Jews, what that means wipe out Israel.
And then here's, as we go through this, we can do this all day about what does Zionism mean? I can tell you what Zionism means to my Palestinian family. It's
Right.
not, and so if anyone says there is Zionism, I can tell you what it means to me and my family and what they've been through. But then there's other people who are Jewish, and Zionism means a Jewish state and a Palestinian state next to each other. And so like we can say all day what it means to me subjectively or you subjectively to anything. And if that's going to be the litmus test, because it's funny, he has to answer all these questions about phrases, yet someone on the right who says there should not be a Palestinian state is not called out for being an anti-Christian and anti-Muslim figure.
Never,
You're saying
anywhere.
Christians and Muslims should live as second class.
I hear what you're saying, but as a man who's running for mayor with the largest population of Jews outside of Israel, I think the river to the sea to my Jewish friends is horrifying. And I think that he should acknowledge that to the Jews of New York. I want to assure you that I believe that there should be an existence of the state of Israel. Or
right.
He kind of hear how he
says it shouldn't be. What he says a state with equal rights for all people, and that there are some people who want to say a Jewish state, and then the question becomes, well, what are you willing to do to make sure it's a Jewish state? Are you willing to pass laws to discriminate against Christians and Muslims? And if you do, that's fine. Just be open and honest about it. For people on the right, they never get that question. Like it's
right. I hear what you're saying. I just want from him I
understand.
Feel secure with him. Like Michael Higgins, the president of Ireland, he's a character, and he said, listen, when he was being called anti-Semitic, he said, no, I'm anti-Benjamin Netanyahu's policies, but we're very supportive of our Jewish friends and the Jewish people. So I would like to hear something like that. That would, give me a sense of more confidence in him that he also supports my Jewish friends too.
And it's all, and I think you're going to see that. And he was endorsed by Brad Lander during the campaign, but just recently, yesterday, by Gerald Nadler, who's one of the highest ranking, most senior Jewish officials, and Scott Stringer, who ran against him, who's Jewish. So I think that the messaging for Zorans to get out there and go to synagogues and temples, which he did, like B'nai Jeshurun and other liberal ones, but even some of the more moderate ones, the far right, forget it. You're not going to get them. So there's no need for that. Like, there's certain people you're not going to reach, like any Democrat. But there are other ones in the middle, and answer the questions for people, like you're saying. That's a good thing of doing it.
He's winning over. He was actually just endorsed by a shofar, which I thought was really interesting.
Shofar?
A mezuzah.
The actual thing that you blow into?
Yes.
That's
Actually,
great.
He's learning new words today, Pete. It's very exciting.
He's very smart. I
Mezuzah.
think he's underrated in terms of his intelligence. All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back. We got more to cover, including that the Trump organization is no longer selling a phone that's made in the USA, oligarchs at play, and more. Let's take a break. Be right back with more of the Dean Obeidallah Show after this. And welcome back. It's still the Dean Obeidallah Show. Look who's here. Maureen Langan Pete Dominick showed up. Oh, it's great to see you two kids. So let's talk about, all right, I found this interesting. I don't even understand it. And now it's getting pushed out of the news because of the Supreme Court decisions. But Trump keeps saying he obliterated the nuclear program of Iran. Nobody in their right mind, forget politics, thinks a one-time bombing obliterates a nuclear program that's been developed for decades over there and hidden all over. But he made it like a hill to die on, and over and over. And Pete Hegseth screaming at the media yesterday, and his own people saying his initial assessment going, it set it back. And there's no doubt it set it back. Is it 6 months, a year setback? But this idea that and now threatening the media, if you don't write what I want, I'm now going to sue you. We're going to come after you. And again, I think it's just an authoritarian power grab and no longer about this issue, because no common sense anywhere would say you would do a one-time bombing and you get rid of the whole program.
I mean, I am so infuriated by how this has been handled by the Trump administration. And I because covering the Iraq war and interviewing generals and politicians and leaders and veterans, I'm in mostly journalists. I'm infuriated at the idea that we've lost any semblance of what journalism is supposed to be. And specifically, when a journalist covers the United States at war, that journalist has to be objective. You cannot root for the American side, even if you're an American journalist. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be embedded with a unit who is protecting you, because that could affect your journalism. You're supposed to. And yesterday, Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump and the entire right is saying, I think Trump said, this is unpatriotic reporting. There's no such thing. That's preposterous. You cannot wave the American flag as a journalist. You have to report on the story. And the idea that you're somehow insulting the actual pilots, the people who carried out this mission, which is what Trump said. He said they were very upset. How fragile those pilots must be. They just flew a freaking 40-hour mission, and you think they care about what journalists are saying? I mean, for God's sake, it is a really bad problem if you're going to make it seem like journalists are supposed to report one way or the other as opposed to just report.
And is it?
Well,
go ahead, Maureen.
Well, I mean, I was a journalist for years, and I had such a respect for journalism, and I have been watching people just so easily in America disavow journalists. They don't even know what journalism is anymore. They'll see an opinion piece. They think Fox is journalism. They think Tucker Carlson is journalism. I heard a woman.
Journalism.
I'm sorry.
Some people think this show is journalism. That's how
it is, but it is in a lot of ways. It is in a lot of ways.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Actually, Dean, you do a lot of research and reading, and you bring facts forth, and you have your opinions with it, but you do a lot of work on what you do, and I respect it. So I'm not even going to
make news, and you talk to experts all the time. But back to
I was joking. You don't have to suck up to me.
I'm not sucking up to you. Believe me, I'm not sucking up to you. I will rip your face off in a minute. I'm being sincere because
literally I'm aroused.
Integrity. But there was a woman, she was on one of the Housewives shows, and she has a talk show, she's on one of the talk shows, not The View, The Talk. And she's like, I'm a journalist. I'm like, you're not a journalist. You're a talk show host. I mean, I've been a talk show host. I've been a journalist. But what Trump did is he started to go after journalists very early on to undermine that. So you have a country now that calls things fake media all the time. It just flows out off their tongue so easily. And now he went after the judges. He's doing exactly the playbook to undermine the foundations of democracy. I could get so enraged and so sickened by this. So there is true journalism out there, and my respect is immense for these people. And they're supposed to hold these kings. They're supposed to question them. And if I don't know, I thought bombs might obliterate things. I thought bombs obliterate might work, but that's his hyperbole again. He comes out, it's obliterated, it's over. And people, well, is that, sir? Is that true? Could they have moved the uranium perhaps somewhere else? How dare you question those pilots flew for a long time and peed in diapers for you? Ridiculous. And then
it's very dangerous though, to as a journalist, you report on the actual mission, and you don't necessarily root for its success. Like when the Navy SEALs went to get bin Laden, think about that reporting. One of those helicopters went down. Bin Laden was killed. Who else died? Were any SEALs injured or killed? Like, how did they get in? How did the Pakistanis respond? How long was this mission planned for? Yesterday, Pete Hegseth said this was the most successful or secretive mission ever, including freaking D-Day. Like, it was like a few planes that didn't even take fire. It's preposterous. And the idea that he's acting like journalists are supposed to be patriots in their reporting is sickening to me. And anybody who's ever covered or respected someone who covered a conflict.
Well put. And I will say too, it's also despicable that Trump brought in the pilots as props to stop criticism of a political decision. The pilots did their job. They did
DEI pilot.
Right. And you have Pete Hegseth, who he's so over the top, it destroys the credibility of the Department of Defense. He should not be there. Trump wants to do political bullshit and the best thing ever. No one's ever done this. That's the political arm. The Hegseth shouldn't do that. And he's now hurt the credibility. I don't think they care. It's all rah, rah, rah.
I was surprised to hear one.
And was it so secretive? Would they take his phone away for a couple hours?
I was surprised to hear that one of the pilots was women, because how did she fly that long without getting too emotional?
Right, right. Did she get her period? I don't know. I mean,
Yep.
I don't know.
Is there a tampon dispenser on that?
Okay.
Do we have a Kotex?
I'm chatting with Maureen Langan and Pete Dominick here at my last show ever as we get canceled. I'm kidding. So let's talk about, okay, so the Trump organization, Pete was going to love this. They were going to sell their phones, their gold T1 smartphone. And it said it was made in the USA. And then what was weird, this first started, that was the tag on it. Now that's gone from the website. And what happened is one of the dumb Trumps, Eric or Dumb Donnie, whatever was on his show when it first came out, and actually kind of walked back going, well, it's the call centers in the USA, but a lot of it will be assembled here, and started giving away that it's really not going to be made all in the USA. So now they're walking back. And I think it's so funny that they made this big deal. They were caught right away. And now the kids didn't do the double, triple down like the dad. They actually go, okay, this is not made in the USA. This is kind of, we got caught type of thing. You think it matters, Pete? You think the Trump world matters?
No. I mean, I don't think any of these these products matter. I actually thought for a time that so much of their money was made by just licensing the name Trump. Sure. But because he was such a terrible president, you could argue, I thought effectively, that brand was damaged, and that name, the licensing of it, wasn't going to bring them in much more money. Of course, that changed their back, but also they're making money off of other grifts, mostly in crypto now. But I don't know if you saw, I mean, the Trump phone itself, I thought what was crazy is that they were trying to pass off. Did you see it? It's just a Palm Pilot with a stylus.
No. You're kidding. That's what Trump has, right?
Trump phone. It's got a stylus.
And by the way, Maureen, the website used to say our made in the USA T1 phone available for pre-order. Now it says, I'm not kidding, brought to life here in the US. American proud design. I'm not kidding. So it went from made in the USA to it's brought to life right here. That means you activated in America.
In America. And with American hands behind every device, we bring care, precision, and trusted quality. It's everything he does. It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. I guess when you buy your gold Visa, you'll get one of the gold phones to go with it.
Well, most of the phones are only white.
Right. You don't get anything with a Trump thing. Everything's a la carte. I can assure you. Gold card, this. You want the phone? We can throw it in for an extra, half price type of thing. Exactly. So you know what? Earlier in the show we talked about Zoran, and there's something else that I wonder if it's percolating. And it reminded me when I saw the article today about the oligarchs at play, Jeff Bezos' wedding this weekend in Venice spending 25 million to 25 to 35 million for a wedding, which they have the money, they have every right to spend it. But you had Elon Musk buy the presidential election. You have big tech frustrating all of us. We don't even know why we get banned or suspended at times. And Mark Zuckerberg, it's not just a $300 million yacht that he has, which he really does have. It's this power they have. And I wonder, some of the anger towards Bezos's wedding is about him, but it's something bigger here going on. And it's also something that fueled Zoran Mandami, where the younger people are not thinking like, maybe I'll be rich one day like that too. They're getting the sense like, we're not going to be that. So we need someone who's going to fight for us. And that it's eat the rich, but in a different way, in a more policy driven way. What do you guys think?
I think it's such a show of American excess overseas. It's so over the top crass, and I think having just come back from there, just seeing that whole thing, like people, they said this big American bravado, this big American over the top, and it's funny. They said to me as a comedian, Maureen, don't bring that big, they don't like big American bravado on the stage. I said, I have an Irish mother. I said it's a sin to feel good about yourself, so don't worry about that. I said, you're always a piece of crap. You're good for nothing. But I think this excess, and I'm wondering, like, seriously, I like a good royal wedding or something like that, but does anybody really care that the nerd is marrying the chick with the fake lips and tits? I mean, honestly, I don't get the whole thing. I really don't get why everybody's so excited about. Oh, and the Kardashians are going. Oh, well, here we go.
I didn't make the list.
Oprah, Tom Brady was there. Who else? But Orlando Bloom. I'll say, you said, hey, if he spent $25 million, if he's got it, I have no problem with that. That's what you just said, Dean. And
his wedding. I don't really care. I mean, it's his wedding.
Do. I
care about the use of power.
I've always thought this. Like, I have a different view on money, I think, than most people. And I don't know what you would call it, but like, I think having lots of money and spending lots of money is absolutely grotesque. And you can ask you what that number is, and I would probably say something about how did you earn the money, or did you, most people inherit their money and make more and so on. But like, if you have $25 million to spend on a wedding, like, give that to any number of other places
sure.
And I find that kind of wealth concentration at much lower levels disgusting. So at his level and the billionaire level, and I think I'm not alone. I think that we're going to see younger generations coalesce around this idea. The wealth concentration is so over the top. People seeing it, seeing the billionaires and the donations that they have, and seeing the anti-oligarchy tour and the popularity that's getting. I think younger people are going to be, of course, there's always going to be people who pursue great wealth and power and all that. That's never going to go away. But I do think the tide is turning on this kind of grotesque wealth concentration and income distribution.
I agree with you 100%. I think it's much deeper. And I think Zoran Mandami won for many various reasons. And one of them is younger people not believing they're going to get the American dream, whatever that is. So it's now, let's even the playing field. Let's make sure the rich pay their fair share. Let's keep things affordable for me. There was I may have told you guys this before, you may have both been on, but Bono years ago was on Conan, and he had a funny thing. I can't do the accent, but he said the difference between America and Irish, and this being for you, Maureen, he said, America, you see a big house on a hill, you go, one day I'm going to live in that house. He goes, Irish, we see a big house on the hill, they go, one day I'm going to get that son of a bitch. And he said that was the difference between the mindset. America, you actually think anyone could really be wealthy and make it. In Ireland, the system is where concentration, no real opportunity, that kind of stuff. That was like 20 years ago. I think we're at that point in America.
If you think, I mean, you don't have to be an economist or take an economics class. You just have to look at your life. You say, how much do I work? How many hours do I work? And then what are my bills for this life? And if your bills are like a studio apartment or renting a 1-bedroom apartment in the suburbs and a car and food, and you're barely making it by, even though you're working that much, and then you look around, I mean, that something's not right. Even growing up, you have better life. Like, so I think it's.
Well, maybe your father didn't drink, but anyway. So the thing is, well, one other thing, a comedian living in Belgium. He's from the UK originally. He's been in Belgium for about 20 years. Nigel Williams is his name. Great guy. He was saying, there's a support system in these countries when women have babies, the child care, paternal leave, family leave,
universal health care.
My friends in Croatia, they have 3 years of support to get the child and everybody situated. But he said, what, Maureen, in America, how much is enough for everybody? When do you just live your lives and enjoy it? He goes, we have problems here. This isn't perfect. He had such an attitude. I loved him. He was like, yeah, none of everything's perfect here. He had that grumpy thing, but he was so wonderful. Um, and he's right. Like, how much is enough? And he said,
Good
we have
question.
vacations, we have social services, we have things in order. So you have so many people in America. We're America. We're number one because we're not going to have any teeth because of fluoride. We're banning that in water. But that's a very good point. We keep striving for more money, more success, more things, more materialism instead of having a life. And so many people here will say that we're the best country in the world, but I wonder how many countries they've been to. And I don't know if we
None.
look or not, but I do like visiting as many as I can and just seeing how other people live.
By no measure are we number one. When it comes to the things that we're talking about in terms of social mobility and opportunity, none of
Right.
these
Social
measures.
mobility is not good at
None
all.
of them.
We've gone way down. And I know Maureen's got to wrap up. She's going to the wedding in Venice soon. Got to get there. The last thing, and then plug whatever you want. I was intrigued. This story, Leanne Rhymes, a singer, said during her singing, her teeth that she has a bridge started falling out, but she sung. She goes, the show must go on. You got to keep doing it. And I was wondering, and then plug what you want. Like, what's the toughest thing on stage that's happened to you? Not like the gig, but like anything with you or something about a gig that you persevered through despite how.
The hardest thing I had my whole comedy career was following you because the audience was so
Yeah.
bad.
They exactly. People were leaving. You're like, no,
People
sit down.
walking-
I'm going to be funny. I get it.
Every time I would walk up after you, the audience would be leaving. So that was a really hard. I hated this. I love this question for performers, but I hated that you submitted a story about Leanne Rhymes' teeth falling out. That story horrified me. And a lot of us have this weird thing about that. And we end up having dreams like a tooth comes out. Like that story really upset me.
Oh,
So
sorry.
I think the worst thing that ever happened to me on stage was in Staten Island. A guy like had a heart attack in the audience. Yeah. And I'll never forget because his friend said, keep going, comedian. I was like, I don't want to keep going.
That's it. You're killing, really, my friend. And Maureen, what
Oh,
about
wow.
you? Maureen, what?
My teeth to have not fallen out, and I still have fluoride where I am. But I think she had a bridge that fell
Doesn't have
out.
to be teeth.
It doesn't have to be teeth. Well, you know,
No.
I did have a miscarriage and perform that night, and that was pretty
Really?
intense. Yeah,
That's true.
yeah. And I remember people go, "Do you know?" Look at Pete; he's flipping out. And people say, "Do you know why?" I had 5. They're like, "Do you know why?" I go, "Yeah." Every time the Kardashians got renewed, my kid killed itself.
Oh, wow.
Get on stage. What can I do? You have to deal. You deal with the pain and you flip it. It's dark, but it's truthful. That's the truth. I put that on stage.
I had someone throw something at me once. The worst experience I remember having was doing a show in Oklahoma at a college, and we had a tornado warning in the middle of my set. And so we had to stop and go into the basement, and I had to hide with the audience, which would have been fine if the show had been going well up until that point. It was not going great. So I'm stuck in a room with people who don't think I'm funny. And and I don't know what's worse, a tornado or me. But that's really like, that was the most uncomfortable thing. And after it was over, they didn't even they're like, you don't have to. It's done. It's fine. The show's over. It really, that's not a joke. That's literally what happened. It was like, okay, this wasn't good at all.
But I thought you guys were going to say something that happened to you.
No, but that was
like
me.
teeth,
I
miscarriage.
didn't have anything like that.
You know,
I found out my wife was pregnant with a child I did not want or desire when I was with Veronica Mosey and Jim David, both of which you guys know, doing a gig. I found out that morning I had to do a gig when I was driving, and the 3 of us will always be bonded forever because I was losing my mind over that. And now that daughter is 20 years old and I still don't want her. She is a real disgrace. She's living her dreams in New York City. She's an amazing human being, and I adore her. But that happened, and I'll never forget. I was like, I wasn't planning on finding out I was going to be a father that day.
The car. All right, before we run out of time, Maureen, what do you want to plug? And anything last thing you want to say?
Oh, I did have somebody shoot me in the butt in the stall of a bathroom at the Brownstone in Patterson because I had to have that IVF shot right at a certain time. And I said, "Oh my God, we didn't get home in time. Could you shoot me in the butt?" And she was wonderful. Susan McDonald shot me in the butt.
That's okay.
I forgot that was the most crazy thing at a gig. Okay. Just follow me on the social media because that's all that matters. It's Maureen Langan, Langan, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and I have a bunch of shows coming up in New York and California. So here we are.
Thank you, my friend. And Pete, what about you? Where can people follow your work?
Please listen to my daily podcast, Stand Up with Pete Dominick. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts or youtube.com/standupwithpete.
That was great. I really enjoyed chatting with you too.